Another week, another Monday, another set of golf lessons, and another episode of The Pit.
So I am confusion.
Let's start with some recent news around Tier 2 Valorant and Tier 2 LCS, or North American Challengers League, and just the drama that seems to be unfolding amongst all of them. For Valorant, it's problems with the extended off-season, like 6 months of no play. People feel like Riot's really not supporting the Tier 2 ecosystem all that much. They only care about Tier 1, and they wiped it down to 5 teams. Look, there's two underlying philosophies that I think are true that I think people need to make sure they understand for Tier 2. One, you're not supposed to be financially fully comfortable in Tier 2. It should be fairly low paying. You're grinding to get to Tier 1. And quite frankly, esports isn't developed enough to the point where Tier 2 should be this whole sustainable ecosystem where people can make a full-time living off of that. You should be able to make enough to put yourself through as you're grinding through, and the majority of people that are in Tier 2 will likely fail. That's the point. Not everybody's gonna make it up to the top. Yeah, you want to make sure that people are getting the right amount of coaching and the infrastructure exists to push people up that should be going up, but not everybody's gonna get there. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions that Valorant's exposing early on of people's expectations around what a Tier 2 system should look like. Now, that said, the second thing is, yes, there should be a bunch of tournaments and opportunities for people in Tier 2 to play. Tier 2 should be a grind, all things considered, compared to Tier 1. Tier 1 is more about structured practice, structured play, and making sure you're prepping for these big tournaments and trying to qualify for them. Tier 2 should just be about playing as much as humanly possible. So I think 6 months off season might be too long, even though the counter argument I would offer is that most traditional sports have an off season that long. You want to make sure people are still playing year round and keeping interest, but then the pro leagues, fade away and then come back and have these breaks that allow people to do other things and exercise other interests. It's just good for everybody. Before we head into the matchups, do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to my channel and you enjoy my content, be sure to subscribe down below. I know only 90%, give or take, are actually subscribed to this channel. I put out a lot of content, so if you like it, get notified whenever it's being uploaded. We had 2 series this past week, one of which was really good. The other one, kind of a stomp, all things considered. EG versus TSM. This is the one that you would have assumed was probably going to be a stomp. It wasn't. It was a 5-game series, and it looked like TSM might be able to do the impossible. But unfortunately, they faltered down the stretch. And Hanser looked to be a clear weak point for them, as Revenge had an amazing series alongside Jojo Pune, who Jojo did notably in some of the losses, but in the games that they won, he was looking pretty damn good. But ultimately, I think this is a top difference series pretty heavily. Or else was interesting. But if you're EG looking ahead, you gotta clean this up a bit. You gotta solve this inconsistency issue that still seems to plague them, that happened in the regular season and is now happening even mid-series here. For TSM, Wild Turtle and Boogie are playing great, and Sandy played decently well, probably the best of all the rookies that played this past week, which is good to see, but he needs to sustain that going forward. The series that you would have thought was going to be close, but really wasn't, was NRG versus TL. I legitimately thought that this series would probably go 5 games, that it would be close, that TL would be an amazing best-of-5 team, and unfortunately, that was not the case. There was a clear gap in mid lane, as APA notably struggled in his first best-of-5 series on the LCS stage. Can he rebound? Sure, but you look at this roster elsewhere, and there were problems. JJ did not play his greatest series that he could have had. Pyosik wasn't bad, but he wasn't phenomenal, and Yeon wasn't as dominant as we've seen him be in lane for TL the majority of the games that they've ended up winning the split. It felt like they actually were a little bit behind a lot of points relative to where they've been elsewhere, which would typically free up pressure for bot lane, for JJ to be able to roam, and that just didn't happen because Palafox and Contracts had this series on lock in mid and jungle. It was not within touching distance at all. Bot lane for NRG with FBI and Ignar, they did decently well. I'm not gonna say that they won the series for them, but they definitely played well. The All-Star MVP was Palafox. It was a mid lane just horrendous gap, and it wasn't even close. Top lane, Summit nearly did win. He notably had this 1v4 outplay that you just felt bad as dude, oh my god. Well, I don't understand why TL was playing Gnar for the first 2 games, because Gnar's just a guy that's going to set stuff up for his team, when in reality, Summit should always be the guy carrying for this team. I don't know why he would not be on those champions at all times. Just, And I'm not asking TL to adapt that right now. I'd like for them to lose to 100 Thieves, but we'll get into that.
You know what really grinds my gears?
The fact that I feel like we keep getting these examples of players and teams from Europe or Korea or China that come over to North America and then just, they might have some early success here or they might not. And then they go back to whatever region they originally came from or they go to somewhere else. And it just seems like things absolutely pop off. And the clearest example of that, which I'm recording this, by the way, prior to LEC Summer Finals going on right now, so I don't know how the result of this is, but regardless, Koss, who's one of the coaches for XL, and Abadage, who was the mid laner for XL, was formerly with 100 Thieves as our mid laner last year, and Koss, who was our coach at the beginning of this year. Abadage, I kind of get to a certain extent. Maybe you get too comfortable on the roster that we were in. Like, his Worlds performance last year, if we're being honest, was not great. And that's not a situation where, like, I was looking at Abadage saying, yeah, like, this is gonna fully improve. Now, had you kept Abadage and maybe had Koss as coach, maybe things would have been different. Maybe what XL has there could have happened here. Who knows? But Koss is the one that I'm looking at, and I feel really weird about, because when 100 Thieves wasn't doing well in spring, like, coaching is the first thing that, like, I personally look at is like, okay, if things are really going bad, you got to either change coaching or change a player. And unfortunately, given that it's Bjergsen, it's double lift, etc., it made sense, unfortunately, that Koss was the one to go. But, like, to see him have this level of success over there, like, really makes you question, like, okay, what is going on in North America that we can't get it right with coaches that seem to be doing good elsewhere? Like, it grinds my gears that this happens, like, all the time and we can't figure it out, which the solution to this is not just, oh, we need to do a better job at importing coaches and players. It's just like, where's our development in North America? It feels like, barring like Kelsey Moser and ThinkGuard with NRG and like the crew that's with Cloud9 now, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like our coaching infrastructure is all that developed in North America. And like, that's a bigger problem, honestly, than the quote unquote player base and player issues that everybody seems to focus on. Before we get into this week's set of games, I do want to touch quickly on the one roster announcement that was made, in that Immortals dropped Kenvi and the majority of their coaching staff, including Smithy. And I don't have a problem with any of these changes that were made, because Immortals just needs to figure out what they're doing. But again, we've seen so many examples of players that go to Immortals or coaching staff that goes there and just goes elsewhere, and then all of a sudden they're amazing, barring Gyoto. But when I'm looking at this from an org perspective of, okay, are these moves that Immortals would be making if they're looking to sell? No, you'd want to hold on to your assets so that whoever's buying your spot would likely come in and have something that they can work with. But it seems like they're making early moves to possibly try and change their roster, which is a good thing if you're an Immortals fan that wants them in the league. But if you're like me and just really doesn't want Immortals in the LCS anymore, given that the roster announcements, like even Kenvi partying, like, it wasn't even majority Immortals fans, it was just everybody else. Like, I still don't know what this brand does for League of Legends. I want them to sell more than anything, and I'm not going to shy away from saying that publicly. So it's like, sure, make these moves, but like, if this is a sign that they're sticking around in the LCS, why? Let's start with the losers bracket matchups first, notably going in order, which we're going to see Dignitas versus TSM on Thursday at 5 o'clock. I honestly have no clue what to expect from this series at all. TSM, I would have told you prior to this, was just going to roll over and likely die, and that was what it was. But now, after playing a very close series against EG, the question is, do you take away from that series that TSM was better than expected or EG was worse? And honestly, I think EG was worse. And I think Dignitas is actually very heavy favorites in this series to win it. I think Jensen and Santorin, when it comes playoff time, are just good. Tomio is going to be a bit of a problem. He's the worst laner in the LCS, and he needs to survive against a Wild Turtle Chime that, when they're on, can be aggressive. Even though Chime did have a bad series against EG, I fully do expect him to rebound a little bit. So if bot lane for Dignitas can hold on and Jensen can continue to be the pressure point that he was towards the later half of the regular season against a player like Insanity, who still has yet to win a playoff series, there's potential there. Santorin should be able to handle Boogie. And in top lane, Rich is great with counter picks against Hanser, who has not looked great, all things considered. So I honestly think, like, this is going to be a mid-top jungle gap, and bot lane is just along for the ride. If that's the case, Dignitas is fine. They started off rough whenever Poom came in, but they've been looking better and better each week. So I think this is going to be a pretty clear-cut 3-1 for Dignitas. I think TSM will be able to steal a game, as Boogie has like one good game where like Jensen like slips up. That tends to happen every now and then. But overall, I think this is like pretty like cut and dry. For 100 Thieves versus Team Liquid, this is a matchup that I think a lot of people are going to look at 100 Thieves and meme them because, yes, I know we're not the best team in the LCS. We struggled down the stretch. We haven't beat any top teams, including Team Liquid, pretty much all year. But just, I don't know, I get this feeling that we can ultimately pull it off. I spent 15 minutes talking about this in my TFC video from this past week. Be sure to check that out if you want the full breakdown, lane by lane, everything that goes on there. That's going to give you more depth. Here, I'm just going to say, yes, I do favor 100 Thieves 3-2 over TL, simply because every time that we've met over the last few years, it has been 3-2, barring the 2021 LCS finals. It's been close, regardless of the caliber of the rosters that people assume going into it, and I just feel like it's going to devolve to that again. So, yeah, I'm saying 3-2 100 Thieves, notably winning, with closer stepping up and actually being a factor in this series, setting up Double Lift to carry these games. And be careful for someday Aatrox. It's always scary every time he gets it. There are 2 more series to talk about, and these are probably the most important series that either of these teams will have for the time being, until they obviously have elimination games later. But the winner of both of these series is guaranteed to go to Worlds, which for our first matchup in Cloud9 versus, why am I blanking? Evil Geniuses. This should be pretty clear cut. Like, this is going to be the reminder for people that Cloud9 is the clear favorite coming into this entire postseason, that they are not a force to be taken lightly, and they're about to remind everybody by absolutely stomping Evil Geniuses 3-0. Fudge is going to have a decent series. I'm not saying revenge is bad, but I haven't seen Revenge versus Fudge yet go extremely in Revenge's favor to the point where they're going to need it, because I think in mid lane, M&S is going to be able to hold Jojo Pune on his own. I don't see M&S tilting this split, and Blabber is just simply better than Shaden. Bot lane is interesting because I think Unforgiven versus Berserker is actually fairly close right now. I haven't been all that impressed with Berserker's play. Like, he's cleaning up, but he's not. If we're gonna have a hard knock series, he's the guy that I need to look at to step up in playoffs, and I still think he's going to. I don't doubt for a minute that he won't. He has never dropped the ball in playoffs yet, so why would he start now? And in support, Sven just wins, bro. Like, what else is there to say? Him versus Ayla? Yeah, it's gonna be a Sven show. The only world, if I'm trying to make an argument for EG to win this, is going to be through mid jungle. I think you got to shut Blabber down. I think Jojo Pune is going to be able to hold his own against M&S, and that's fine. If he can get an advantage on him, even better. But you need Shaden to step up and have the series of his life and be on par with Blabber to be able to contend in this series, because every other lane I don't really see fully going in your favor. This just needs to be one of those performances where just everybody steps up. I don't even think, say EG pulls this off, I don't think they can beat C9 in 2 best-of-5s. It's not going to happen. But if you can just get everybody to click on the same page once for one day, you win this series, you're going to Worlds, and nothing else matters. That said, it's a 3-0 C9. But the important series, the one that I have my eyes on, that I cannot wait to watch, is Golden Guardians versus NRG. NRG has stepped up massively over the last few weeks. They've been continuing to gel, continuing to look better. Palafox has looked incredible and got snubbed again for LCS All-Pro, and is going against the #1 mid laner in most people's eyes, and Gory. I think Gory has been clear-cut better than everybody else in the league, and this is going to be Palafox's time to shine. If you want to assert yourself as one of the best top laners in the league, if you want to get over this meme of the Korean mid laners constantly doubting us, constantly saying, yeah, we're still better than the NA mids, this is your time to do it. This is when you put Golden Guardians in the dirt and finally get this roster to Worlds. I mean, think about it. Dokla, Contracts, and Palafox have been trying for so long to get to this stage, for Contracts to get back for the first time in God knows how long. For Dokla, he's been trying since 2019 with Optic and hasn't been able to do it. Palafox just constantly on the precipice, but they can't put it together when it matters. They falter down the stretch, and it happens every split. And Golden Guardians has looked good. Their boogeyman has been C9. They just haven't been able to figure them out. And I'd like to avoid that rematch in winner's bracket and then seeing it go to finals again. And just like, if you've been watching the LPL, you've seen JDG face off against BLG again for like the 5th time now, I think, and 3rd time. I don't even know what number it is, but JDG just keeps stomping them every time, and it's not fun to watch. So being honest, I do not want to see Golden Guardians go against Cloud9 again, because I just know exactly what's going to happen. There's no, oh, we're going to beat them this time. It's like, sure, Golden Guardians fans can sit here and say that they want that, but as a fan of League of Legends myself, I want to see NRG versus C9. That is the matchup that I think everybody and their mother, if you could pick the perfect results for this weekend, that is the one that you want to see. So what needs to happen in order to get to that point is that FBI needs to remember who he does and remember his tendencies and help them out to get there. FBI plus Ignar, we've seen him do well in best of 5 series. He just needs to come and put it all together. This bot lane needs to hold their own against Stixxay and Huhi, not let Huhi just take over these games as he's been doing. And in mid lane, Palafox and Contracts just need to have an on series. If they're able to get the better of Gory and River, which River we know is going to try to affect all the lanes, whereas Contracts is going to power farm, that's fine, but like, just hold your ground. Like the Hodor, hold the door. NRG can beat them late game. I have full confidence in that. Just get there. Don't fall behind early, and you can do this. I want to see NRG go to Worlds so badly. Now, this would mean that Golden Guardians would then have to face off against, I think, what, Dignitas? Yeah, that's fine. They'd still make it to Worlds anyways that way. I'm fine with that. I know this segment has been way more biased, and sure, when you look at the top lane, Licorice has been one of the best top laners, and that's going to be a clear-cut problem for NRG. Dokla has not CS'd as clearly as he should on Renekton. He just hasn't been this X factor, but if you're him, all you need to do is make sure Licorice doesn't get ahead. That is your only job this entire series, is do not let Licorice snowball. Let your other lanes do that. I don't care what you need to pick or what you need to do. Just do not let it happen. You know River's going to come top. You know attention is coming your way. Figure out a way to shut it down. My final prediction, I can't in good conscience pick NRG yet, and like, I think it might be good actually if I pick against them. I'm going to say Golden Guardians 3-2. I think that NRG can take a few games this series, and again, I hope that I'm wrong. I'm betting, like, I'm making this prediction with my mind, not my heart. My heart lies with NRG, my mind is saying Golden Guardians. But dear God, if there was ever a series for NRG to just step up and prove themselves and finally get past this damn hurdle that happens to them every time in this position, just do it now. I don't know if I had 20 minutes of this video. If not, obviously I'm not going to end with the Baron jump scare, but I will just say thank you all for watching until this point. LCS playoffs has been a ton of fun, and I hope you're tuning in, because right now viewership numbers are still fairly low. I know the people that are watching this video are probably already watching, but just tell your friends about it. Pass along the word. It's been a lot of fun to watch. If you're considering coming to Jersey, come to Jersey. And for those in New York City, we are having a watch party at Brookland on Saturday for the Cloud9 versus EG series. I will be there at 5 o'clock. I'm still working on possibly getting some world tickets to give away. I'll confirm down in the comments below if that's happening or not. But thank you all, as always, for your support. I'm 40 subscribers away from 1,000. A little bit nervous about what's going to happen during the off season. I have no doubt that I can talk for 20 minutes or 10 minutes on a topic like 3 times a week. That's never going to be an issue, but it doesn't stop me from sitting here worrying like, well, what's going to happen when the pit's not here in the 2 months in between worlds? And then we're going to get to it. I'm going to have like 5 video ideas that I want to do anyway. So hope you all are enjoying the series. We only got like